Hello, and welcome to the Muse Lab, your destination for all things spiritual, sensual, and pleasurable. Here I explore the nuances of our human experience, connect with practitioners to support your glow up, and share my lessons and blessings as perspective to move you closer to alignment and self-empowerment. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So without further ado, let's explore. Hello, and welcome to the Muse Lab podcast. It's your girl, Siobhan L. And I am attempting to be consistent. And I'm recording things as the ideas come to me. I know most of the real consistent champion podcast girlies script out their month and what they're going to discuss, who they're going to discuss it with. I've even recommended people who are starting out in the podcast space to do the same thing. I am trying to get better at applying the advice to myself, the recommendations that I give to others to myself. So I'm working on that. But right now, because we're getting back into the swing of things, I am learning. I'm going to say learning because it is a process. I am learning to act on ideas that come to me in the moment where I want to create specifically, not from an impulsive type of perspective, but not sitting on the creative energy, because I get ideas all the time. If you are a loyal, I don't want to say loyal, but if you are loyal to the Muse Lab or part of the Muse Lab community, whether it is through this podcast or on the interwebs, or if you've just been in communion with me for the last decade, you have at some point heard me say that I have ADHD. And you have heard me talk about the challenges I have with being a consistent creative. And what I'm learning is that because my brain is a stream of consciousness, that's just kind of how my operating system is in regards to my brain. That's how my operating system is. And because that is how my operating system works, I get ideas a lot. I get ideas on a consistent basis. There's just a flow and an array of ideas that are constantly in my brain. So with that, there are often times, like in the morning or at random points throughout the day, but particularly in the morning, early in the morning and late at night, I get really detailed ideas, and I do not act on them often. I'm just like, I'm still laying in bed. I'm tired. Like, I don't want to act on it, and then I'm gonna be up all night, and then I messed up my sleep pattern. Because typically, when that happens at night specifically, it's during the work week, and I have like a 9 o'clock. I have a 9 o'clock meeting, and this idea pops into my head at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, and I know me, I hyperfocus. That's one of the traits I have of living with ADHD. I hyperfocus. And if I get an idea at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to hyperfocus to actualize as much of that idea as physically possible, which means I might be up for 3 hours, which then means I'm only going to get 2 hours of sleep because between 7 and 8 o'clock, I'm going to get up, right? Because I have a 9 o'clock meeting. So I often defer my creativity to the woes of having to be productive in the future post reception of idea. So I'm learning when productivity is not a factor in when I'm receiving these creative ideas. I'm learning to just go with the flow and take action on the creative ideas that I receive so that I don't lose the energy, because the way creative ideas are downloaded to me, I presume because I'm a writer and words are my gift, I get the script, not the you should do this, this, this. I get the script. Like, for example, this podcast episode was was a download. I was watching. So it was, what I'm going to talk about was inspired by Brittany Elizabeth, who I am very much inspired by as a content creator, sharing her life living with ADHD. And it is inspiring me to, or motivating me to do more with sharing how I'm navigating my ADHD experience, or AUHDs, probably. I'm pretty sure I am very low on the spectrum of autism. I got a little splash of autism. I'm very low on the spectrum. I will not get tested because I do not need another test to confirm what I already know. Like, when I recognized what ADHD was, when people started talking about it in season 1 of the pandemic, and I'm talking about 6 years ago, this time when the world shut down, when people started talking about it on TikTok and on Clubhouse, and I started comparing it with things that I thought were just quirks of who I am, I knew then I had ADHD. All the test did was confirm what I knew. The diagnosis was a necessity so that I could get the proper care that I needed. But that, once people started describing their symptoms, and I start like, for me, when my eyes are open to something, I cannot unsee it. And then I become hyper aware about these particular things. So now, not only am I hyper aware, I'm now paying attention to those signs, and those, I'm gonna call them symptoms, but to those signs, to those quirks. I'm paying attention to them because that's literally all I can think about. It's literally all that I can see. So when people talk about AUHD, I'm looking at that intersection between autism and ADHD, and I'm listening to people who have been diagnosed with both autism and ADHD, and I'm again recognizing those symptoms. Like, I'm clocking myself. So again, I'm not about to go through that because I recognize what's there, right? But I'm inspired by Brittany Elizabeth to do more with sharing my experience living with AUHD, ADHD. I'm inspired, and I'm motivated. I should say motivated. I'm inspired by her, and me being inspired by her motivates me to want to share my experience with living with this condition, if you will, classified as a disability condition, if you will. There is no cure for this type of cognitive or cognitive conditions, period. There's no cure, right? So you learn how to live with the nuances that make you who you are, and dictate how you navigate the world, how you process information, how you interact with people, so on and so forth. And one of the things that has been prevalent with this recognition and adjustment of living with ADHD, AUHD, and now how I am hyper aware of how I interact with people, it has made dating challenging. I want to say difficult, but I'm learning to adjust my word because difficult means hard. And oftentimes things that are difficult are are almost impossible to overcome. But I want to identify this as a challenge because a challenge means there are multiple solutions that can be executed in order to overcome the challenge, right? So I don't want to classify me dating as a person living with ADHD, ADHD, or ADHD with a little splash autism, right? ADHD with a little splash of undiagnosed autism. I don't I don't want to classify this experience as difficult because something in my brain is going to hear difficult and it's going to process difficult differently. And then it's in my brain, it's going to interpret this as something that is hard for me to overcome or a situation that is going to exhaust me because it is too difficult. And things that are difficult for me automatically incite me to out. So if something is difficult, I'm in a space in my life where if something is difficult, and I know difficulty lives on a spectrum, like there's levels of difficulty, right? But if something is difficult and in the space that I'm in my life, I'm gonna opt out because the thing that I'm doing is preserving, not necessarily protecting. Racial capacity expert said the problem is that we too busy trying to protect our peace, and why are you trying to protect something that you should already have? Just be at peace. So preserve. So in order for me to preserve my peace, I opt out of things that are at a level of difficulty that I can't transition into a challenge, right? If I recognize something is difficult, ask myself, is this difficult or is this a challenge? Because a challenge is what's going to help me build capacity. Shout out to Raquel, the capacity expert for this and for the, be at peace, be protecting your peace. Raquel, the capacity expert, says that challenges bring adversity and also build capacity, right? So is this challenge going to help me to build capacity to expand to what I can withstand or navigate in this life and my human experience? Or is this difficulty going to cause me some form of undue stress? Oh, I'm trying to think her name. It's not is it Dr. Thelma? It's not Dr. Thelma. It's someone else, and I'm seeing her face for the life of me. Brown skinned woman. She talks about undue stress, and the number one killer for Black women is chronic stress, undue stress. She talks about how to navigate undue stress all the time. So those things are kind of etched in my brain, and that is my metric, my filter on how to determine what situations, occurrences, life life things, life events I'm going to interact with and which life events I'm going to opt out of, right? So this particular life event, this particular occurrence is not a difficulty. It is a challenge. It is a challenge and it requires me to build capacity to expand how I'm navigating this situation, but also capacity that imparts wisdom and allows me to develop strategies and techniques on how to better navigate this landscape, right? Cool. So, again, if you are a listener of this podcast or if you are part of the Muse Lab community, you know I like to set a foundation. The teacher in me is always going to lay down some groundwork before I start to build on top of that, right? So that's the landscape that I'm working for. Me navigating love and romance as a person living with ADHD with a splash autism. I like to establish the groundwork so that I know how to build capacity on top of that, right? Cool. So Brittany Elizabeth at the time of this recording, this must have been the date of this recording is March 14th. So on March 13th, I believe, or some in the week of Friday the 13th, Brittany Elizabeth shared on her Instagram page the determiners or the parameters of how she identifies someone she needs to be or should pursue something romantic with, right? She identified what those things look like. And we've all been told year over year that butterflies is the identifier of knowing when someone is your person, right? Like that person gives you butterflies, they make your insides tingle, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. And I resonated with Brittany when she said, no, that is a telltale sign that I need to run because, and I recognize her and I have shared experiences, right? And she talked about how she identified, like growing up, she identified love through transaction, through service, through giving, right? And if she didn't give, if she didn't perform, there were no transactions, she felt like she was not worthy of love. And I recognize that my mother didn't teach me that. I spent a lot of time around my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. I spent a lot of time around my maternal grandmother, and I talk about this in one of my Mother's Day episodes where I had to apologize to my mom for not allowing her to mother me. I spent a lot of time around my grandma. My mother became a single parent by way of divorce. I did not originally start growing up in a single parent home, but by the time my parents separated and divorced, I was now in a single parent home. And because of that, because my mother had to provide for me, and because she a Gemini, and she not gonna let Earth defeat her, she was gonna do what she needed to do to make sure we were good. Her and I were good, and that required her to work multiple jobs. And because that required her to work multiple jobs as a youth, when I was in primary school, that meant I needed to stay with my grandparents. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents during the week, and I would often only see my mother on weekends. And because of that, my grandmother used that as an opportunity to call herself trying to raise me. When you start to think about your child and how different parts of your child affect how you adult at your big age, things just start to click for you. And my grandmother, my Nana, she used to think it was cute to be like, well, I raised you. She did. She supported my mother while she was trying to provide for me and become independent of her parents so that she didn't have to rely on her parents because she has always been an independent woman. She's always been someone that made it a point not to rely on people. That is a gift and a curse, right? Because when you are hell bent on not relying on people, I learned that from my mother. You're hell bent on not relying on people, you don't know how to ask for help and you don't know how to tap into community. And that's one of the cycles that I've had to break. Not too many cycles with my mother. I've had to break. I've had to go back a lineage to my grandmother and end. I had to end things with my grandmother. So my mother ended a lot of things with my grandmother on her end, which meant it gave me less cycles to end for me as the final. I'm the last of my grandmother's, like my grandmother's lineage doesn't go any further than me because I don't have any children. So I'm the end, you know. That's another before we get too deep in that. That's another conversation for another day. But everything ends with me. All the cycles end with me, right? So the little bit of cycles that I had left that were left over from my grandmother, I have been shutting them down and starting new things. I've been creating new legacy, things that I can impart to my cousins, new things that I can impart to my nephew, new things that I can impart to other women who are around me. That then becomes my legacy, right? I don't necessarily have children that I've birthed, but I have a community of children that I have influenced and that I have raised. So I have mothered plenty of people, my students included. So that is my legacy. So because I have ended cycles between my mother and my grandmother, the person that people see me as, who I mentor, who I teach, who I pour into, they get the benefit of the cycles that I have ended and the new generational groundwork that I have developed. They get to reap the benefits of that. So because my mother is a very independent woman, she did what she needed to do so that she could reestablish her independence. My mother left home. She was gone for a whole decade, married. She was a military wife, had a child. Like, she had a whole life. And then, unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out. And she ended up bringing me back to the home where she was raised. And she created a new life for herself, created a new groundwork for herself. So that need for independence is something that I received from mom, but a lot of other nuances that became embedded into my psyche were imparted by my grandmother. And because I was one of those kids intuitively, I should not have been. I was way too young to have this thought process, but because I did not want to be a burden to my mother, because I didn't know the specifics of why my parents separated and got divorced until I got way older. But I didn't know the specifics. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know why the marriage ended and we had to move with Nana and Granddaddy. Like, I didn't know that. But what I recognized is that my mom was not in a great space. And so I did not add to whatever stress or difficulty we were already experiencing by having to move back home in a house where my uncle, his wife, and his stepkids were living. All the kids are back in the house. So I did not want to add to that stress. So things that I mean, by this time, when I was staying with my grandparents, mother and I had moved out. But still, my mom is working multiple jobs, and the only task I have is to be good in school, do my chores. I was in church at the time. Be in church, be a good student, be a good child, help out my mother. Like, I didn't have many requirements as a young human being. I didn't have many requirements, right? So I did not want my behavior, or I didn't want to project anything. This is in my mind, I'm like 10, right? I didn't want to project anything onto my mom to create more burden for her, because she's already in this very dysregulated state by having to work 3 jobs to ensure her and I are good, right? So my grandmother did a lot of things that my mother would have probably tried to fight her. My mother would have stopped working her 3rd job. She would have found a way. She would have stopped, and I would not have been staying with my grandparents during the week if I told her a third of things she did. Because my grandmother took it back to her Southern roots, and that's how she was raising me. That's how she was taking care of me at that time. There were some things that were very, I mean, in this age, in this year, people would classify that as abusive, right? So there are things that I never shared with my mother that I internalized and that manifested into behaviors, values, and beliefs as an adult. And a lot of that centered around me feeling like, in order for someone to love me, in order for someone to care for me, in order for someone to accept me, I had to be in service. Things were transactional, right? I often talk about my whole phase in college. My whole phase in college there was a underlining of fucking for safety or coercive rape. it's unfortunate. So there were some instances where I was hoeing responsibly, and there were some instances where I was fucking for survival. And I don't go too far into detail for that, but one of the things that I learned that I had to unlearn when I was in college is that when a guy takes you out, there is the regular side of the menu and there is the fucking side of the menu. And the fucking side of the menu were the entrees. Horrible. The fucking side of the menu were the entrees. So if you got an appetizer, salad, and a soup, or maybe like a burger or something like that, those were the non-fucking things. But if you got an entree, like if you got a steak, or if you wanted to get lobster, or if you wanted to get some form of pasta entree, anything over $20 was part of the fucking side of the menu. If you were ordering on the fucking side of the menu, that meant you was fucking later. That was the transaction. I know now that shit was sex work, right? Niggas taking me out with the presumption that I will order from the fucking side of the menu, air quotes, with the presumption that I will order from the fucking side of the menu so that they can say, well, I took you out, I took you off campus, I fed you, I did this, and now this is the return on investment. The return on my investment is you giving me some pussy. And there were some instances where I kind of had no other choice. Having a nightcap. Oh, I'm gonna take you to my spot. We could talk. We could do this. Da 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 da. And it became clockwork for me to anticipate if I was gonna be at Red Lobster and I was ordering the crab Alfredo. Well, I guess I gotta fuck this nigga now because he gonna expect it. And that is a horrible way to think. One, and a horrible way at such a young age to experience dating. Horrible, right? Because now as I evolve and I get older, I'm trying to navigate how I experience men. So now I'm thinking, let me make sure I have money. Let me make sure I have money and that and or whatever I order, I can afford. So as I got older, dating men became me ordering things that I knew I could pay for. And in the event some niggas try to get froggy and be like, oh, this bill is expensive, I pull out my money and I be like, oh, it's okay, we could go have fun a bill. But now don't think you about to get smashed. Cause I just paid for myself. I just helped you with the bill. Like, don't think you about to get smashed for me. Cause it only works if you pay. If I'm paying, it don't work. Cause I could have took myself out. And then eventually I got a card. So now I don't need you to come pick me up. I don't need you to know where I live. I don't need you to come pick me up. I'm ordering things that I can afford myself. I'm ordering drinks. I'm ordering these things because I can afford to pay for myself. So if you want to either split the check or you want to divide the bill, that's fine. I can pay for my own shit. That's how dating became for me until I wasn't even dating at all. I would just meet a guy. I would get those dumbass butterflies, and then all of a sudden be in a relationship. And 3 months later, I'm trying to figure out how the fuck did I get here? Because I actually never agreed to be in a relationship with you. We were supposed to be just dating, but now all of a sudden people think we married and we're arguing like a married couple. All we do is argue. We're arguing like a married couple. You want to fuck me all the time and the sex is lackluster. Now you want head and you don't really groom yourself properly. So you not getting head. I'm not getting head. You not getting head. We're not satisfied in this relationship. But every time I try to end it, you find a way to suck me back in because I still at that point had not recognized my worth. I still at that point had not recognized my independence. I still at that point had not been brave enough to be like, I have 50-11 god cousins. And if you fuck with me, all I gotta do is make a phone call and that's your ass. Because I didn't want to involve people in my shit. There are plenty of instances where I should have called my father. I should have called my dad. I should have got my father on the fucking phone and be like, "Hi, Dad," and just had this motherfucker on speaker. I should have just had my father on speaker. There are so many instances where I should have just called my father, and I could have ended a lot of the bullshit that I went through, but I didn't want to involve people in things that I felt like as an adult I should have had a handle on. And that is the worst mindset that you can have, because that places you in a position to feel like you have to handle everything by yourself when community is right there. I remember not too long ago, my father's youngest brother, now he's the youngest brother. My father had 4 other siblings, but now 2 have passed, so it's only 3 of them. I'm in Jersey, so my cousin was up here living in Jersey. He went to Columbia for grad school. He works for the NBA. He came up here for his graduation. He had a graduation party, so my uncle and his wife came up here for that. And my mom, we went over there to connect with him because he was like, "I want to see you," because they love my mother. Like, divorce or not, they love my mother. My mother's never not part of the family. So we're having this conversation. I'm recalling this guy that I used to date. Well, I'm using date very loosely at this point. The guy that I ended up being in a relationship with. And it was my first long distance relationship. He was in Virginia. I was here. I met him through my godfather. He was, not sure if that's still there. He was my godfather's godson. But I am my godfather's first godchild. I'm the original, and everyone else came after me. So I reconnected with my godfather, and I would go down to Virginia to visit him. And I met his godson, and he and I probably should not have, not probably, he and I should never have gotten together. That was the most toxic shit that I've ever experienced in my life. Well, one of the most toxic relationships that I've ever experienced in my life. He and I should have never gotten together, but we did because, butterflies and connection. It was really just a lot of sexual tension. I'm gonna keep it a buck. It was a lot of sexual tension. He used to put me through a fucking mattress. I'm not gonna hold you. That motherfucker would drive 6 hours from Virginia all the way to Jersey, stay with me for a week, put me through a motherfucking mattress. I know how I ain't get pregnant. Put me through a motherfucking, well, I know how because I got endo. But put me through a motherfucking mattress, go back to Virginia, and then go back to his now ex-wife. And I met the girl. He used to drive her car all the way to Jersey to come see me, be with me for a whole week, drive her car back down to Virginia, and then be with her. When I found that out, I crashed the fuck out. And in the midst of me crashing the fuck out, he threatened my life. Then I had to call my dad. But I was recalling this and was sharing that with my uncle. And he looked at me and was like, "So why the fuck am I just hearing about this?" And I'm like, "Oh, hell, this like 20 fucking years ago." But that's a testament to the connection that I have with my family. Because had my father really felt like this particular dude was a threat, had my father thought that, all of my uncles, and at the time, only one had passed, and the other one, my eldest uncle, was still alive at the time. So it was 4 of them jokers. So if my father had made a phone call to one and all 4 of them found out and made their way to Virginia, I would be telling this story in a very different fashion. But again, it's a testament to the importance of recognizing that you have community. And as women, particularly as Black women, when we're out here dating these men, for those of us who choose to date men, we are out here, and there are a lot of men who are not right in the mind and see women as objects, as tools, as things that they can possess. And my ex, that particular ex, became very possessive of me. and threaten to delete me if he even thought that I was dealing with another dude. He couldn't probably bust a grape, but still, I was in my early 20s. And for someone to not just stalk me, because then he became a stalker, for someone to not just stalk me, but also threaten my life, that was very jarring for me. I never had somebody do that. I never had nobody stalk me. I never had nobody threaten my life. And regardless of whether it was an empty threat, it was enough to make me shift how I navigate relationships with men, but also not be afraid to tell people what I got going on. That would come back to me, what was this, a decade later, where I had another similar situation and I was trying to end the relationship with this guy who we ended up just in a relationship. And I knew, this is also a testament to me not following my intuition the first time. I knew within the first 2 weeks he and I shouldn't be together. But I convinced myself that I run from relationships, that I end them quickly, and I do not give them an opportunity to evolve. And because of my past experiences, and because of me trying to establish something healthy with someone, I allowed a person who should have never been able to breathe the same air that I was breathing be in my life, move himself into my apartment, infuse himself into my life, gaslight, be mentally abusive to me, in some ways be verbally abusive to me, and then threaten again to delete. But see, I wasn't afraid to reach out to my community. And I let folk know what was going on. But I also became a little strategic, and because someone likes to position themselves as a threat to you or someone that you should be afraid of, when men do that, you just got to be a little strategic. And I got him to break up with me, long story short. I haven't seen or spoken to him. That was a decade ago. I haven't seen or spoken to him since. Thank God. I don't want to cross paths with him. My ancestors are working overtime to make sure that this motherfucker don't come into my vicinity. He is blocked wherever I could block him. And we live as far as I know, we still live in the same state. But we we have not crossed paths. Praise be. All of these experiences have shaped how I navigate dating. So I no longer subscribe to when you feel butterflies, that's your person. When I feel butterflies, I exit stage left. I dip out because I know the type of men that I have attracted over the years have been men who have given me those butterflies. A lot of it has been very strong sexual attraction. A lot of it has been trying to be in close proximity to me. A lot of it has been men who saw my wild and free and untamed spirit and saw me as a conquest to try to tame me, to try to rebrand me and shape and mold me into the ideal woman that they want instead of going and looking for that, trying to convert me into whatever vision that they had in it. So a lot of that, I talk about this in a previous episode. I, a lot of that is shaped around me not believing that I was worth more than the low hanging fruit that I had been advertising. Centering around performance. If I am not giving a guy what he wants, or if I'm not showing him that I have these wifely qualities, that I can be domesticated and all of these things, then he's not going to want. And the problem was I desired to be wanted. I wanted men to want me. And it's not that they didn't. Niggas wanted me. It wasn't that. I was looking for that energy of wanting, energy of acceptance, energy of an understanding, energy of companionship. I was looking for it and requesting it from the wrong people. It took me years to figure that out, but I was requesting it from the wrong people. But also at the same time, simultaneously, not believing the people who I knew I should be requesting it from would be willing to give it to me. I never even gave them an opportunity. I cut myself off at the knees before I had a chance to do anything, before anyone else had a chance to even come to me. I cut myself off at the knees and I took myself out the game. I took myself out the running. No one else had to tell me that they didn't want me. My self-fulfilling prophecy in my head put that out into the atmosphere, and the atmosphere responded accordingly. That's why all of the spirits say, be careful with your words. You say things out of jest because it's a colloquial thing to do, right? Very nonchalantly. You say things repetitively in conversation with people. And also, oftentimes, we say things to get a response, to get attention, right? We want allies. We want people to empathize with us. We want people to sympathize with us. So we'll say things hoping that the people that we are talking to, preferably people who barely know us, right? We say things hoping that these people will respond to us and empathize with us and give us that doting energy that we are desiring, right? Looking for things in the wrong places, but also looking for things desperately anywhere where we can get it. I've recognized now that is operating out of a space of lack. So we'll say things repetitively and now it becomes second nature. You don't even think about what you're saying and how often that you're saying it. And you say it for so long, and your environment, your human experience starts to reflect the things you speak. And because you haven't put two and two together, you are trying to understand why every time you take 10 steps forward, you get pulled 20 steps back. It's because now I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I'm getting visions at the same time. Now your entire you've shifted the timeline for yourself. This isn't necessarily the direction that I thought I was gonna go in, but here we are. You have shifted the timeline for yourself simply by the words you wove together in the sentences that you spoke in repetition. You shifted your own timeline. But quantum leaping is becoming more popular, more nuanced. Everybody's not going to catch on. It's not going to become so popular that it becomes like new age wellness, right? Quantum leaping is never going to do that because people are going to think we're all full of shit. That's great. Everybody don't need to jump on it. But people who are awakening are recognizing that quantum leaping is, in fact, a thing. And the quickest way to quantum leap into another timeline is for you to say things that are in misalignment with the direction that you desire to go into because you are in a space of lack and you are looking for people to sympathize and empathize with you because you are searching for energy in the wrong places or you're searching for energy wherever you can stifle it, right? So the quickest quantum leap you can do is to repeat certain words and phrases and equate that to your human experience, infuse that into your human experience and for the universe, for your atmosphere to start to reverberate and start to show back to you, mimic back to you, mirror back to you the words that you have put out in your atmosphere. So I don't date things that I used to say. I don't date, I just be in relationships. Every motherfucker, I was with since at from the point I said, and this I started saying that maybe 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, maybe close to a decade ago. I really date. I just be in relationships, and that's what was happening. I wasn't dating anybody. I just would men would come into my life, and all of a sudden we go together,
And I would be lost because how the fuck we go together? Like, there were steps that were missed in the process, in the get to know you process. I always end up getting to know someone in the process, like in situ. I'm in the situation getting to know people. I'm learning people in situ. Things that I would have opted out of before I got 2 months in, I'm learning now because the talking stage, the courting stage was bypassed. It went from we went out to dinner, we end up kissing on each other. Maybe we got it in real quick in the backseat of a car, right? Which is so lowly for myself. Like the more I say it out loud, the more lowly the behavior is. Like, with your person, right? With the person that you're dating with, get it in the car. That's fun. That's supposed to be fun and adventurous. It's not supposed to be the standard. Certain things, certain behaviors are fun and adventurous. It's not supposed to be the standard, right? So now this is my experience because I have created all of these self-fulfilling prophecies about certain men not wanting me not dating, I just be in relationships or whatever, all the different narratives around romance and dating and relationships that I told myself, all of those things that I have repeated in conversation with people that have said out loud, that have wrote about, all those things now start my environment starts to mimic the things that I have put into the atmosphere. That is a quantum. I shipped in my own time. This isn't to say that I can't change, but this is to acknowledge when you say things without clear or with adverse intent, the impact that it has on your life is insane. So we talk about who spiritists, coaches, gurus. There's a collective conversation about being intentional in what you do. And it starts with how you speak on yourself, right? As an ADHDer, as someone living with ADHD, we often tend to say things without thought because we're just making general conversation. Whether we have a dark sense of humor, most of us do, whether we have a dark sense of humor or whether we are sharing things because we're getting to know people and we just kind of regurgitate our entire lives. But regardless of how or why we say certain things, we will say things without thought. Like the intention isn't to shift our dating experience, the landscape that we're living in, or for our living experience to start to mimic our words. That's not our intention. But because we're just talking and we're just navigating life, we don't think about until later the things that we said, how that now is influencing our environment. So for the ADHDer, who is navigating dating and romance, it's very important not for us to hyper focus so much, because now if we hyper focus because we're now hyper aware of our words, we will start to edit ourselves. So it is a challenge to find a middle ground with speaking into existence what we desire, but also being mindful about some of the not so great things that we talk about that we quantify as an identifier of who we are, as opposed to us acknowledging that this is an experience, right? So I can say, I don't really date, I just be in relationships. That's not the experience I want. I could follow up with saying that's not the experience I want, but in my past experience, I've done a lot of hopping into a relationship before I got through the talking stage. So now it's about reframing how I'm acknowledging certain behaviors that have influenced my experience, as opposed to speaking it in a way that is signaling to the universe, the frequency, the atmosphere, that this is how I identify with myself. Very key, right? When ADHDers talk, we speak in a way that we are utilizing our lived experience to identify with who we are. The constant challenge or the constant practice that we need to develop is that we are extracting our lived experience to establish relatability with who we are connecting with, right? Think about it. On a date, you're in this talking stage, you might reveal certain things that your potential companion or partner probably shouldn't even know. But that's just you being honest and transparent because that's who you are as an ADHDer or an AUHDer, right? You're just being honest and transparent about who you are because ADHDers are direct and upfront. We're not necessarily trying to hide things because that's too much work. We're not trying to misrepresent ourselves because that's too much work. We don't have the brain capacity to try to hide things. We don't have the brain capacity to misrepresent ourselves. Those of us who are living as ADHDers and not trying to weaponize our condition, right? Those of us who are not trying to weaponize our condition, we recognize that we are direct. Small talk is not the thing that we do. And when we share our lived experience, our lived data, it is a means to establish connection. It's not us trying to center ourselves. It's not us trying to overtalk anybody. We are listening to you, and then all of a sudden you say something that activates a space in our brain, an occurrence in our brain, a life event in our brain. And now we're so eager because we have a connection. And that dopamine rush hits us. And we're so excited that we now have something in common that we can talk about. And we're trying to contain ourselves, but we don't want to lose the thought. So we start interrupting you. It's not that, it's not purposeful. We interrupting you because we're excited. We're not interrupting you because we don't want you to stop talking. We want you to keep talking. But we also want to caveat that what you just said just now is a commonality that we have. And we want to establish immediately that we have this thing in common. So that's how the ADHD brain is working. So as we are working to establish commonality, listening to understand and to also observe or extract or synthesize how we connect to one another, how we're bridging connection with one another. All of those things are actively occurring as someone is speaking to us, particularly a potential romantic interest. All of those things are actively happening in our brain. We're observing, we're synthesizing, and we're connecting. All of those things are happening simultaneously in our brain. And the moment you say something that is specific to our experience, pause. Now we have to we gotta pause right there and we gotta massage that. We gotta massage that. And in this process, we may speak on our experiences in a way that identifies or it's framed as if it is an identifier of who we are. And it's not. I never wanted to identify as somebody who goes out on one date and now all of a sudden I'm in a relationship. I never wanted to identify as that. I never wanted to identify as that person. Never. But I said it so much, not thinking that I was putting this identifier into the atmosphere. The way I framed it was if that is just who I am. That was never my intention. So as the ADHDer, we're sharing our life experiences with others as a means to connect. It is very important that how we are framing things, that we are utilizing words that shares that life event as what we experienced, not how we identify. I'm shifting to another thought. That's where the pause just came in. I'm shifting to another thought because I want to, because I we're talking about butterflies and how that's kind of like a red flag for an ADHDer. Butterflies, particularly for an ADHDer, is a red flag. That is a reminder of the people who I used to date that made me feel that way. And that is a signal that this person may place me in a position where I feel like I have to perform and I need to run. And that was the connection that I had with Brittany Elizabeth when she shared that in her Instagram post. And that's what sparked me to do this episode that has gone in 11 different ways. But if you fuck with me, I know you follow me. What does safety look like, particularly for me, for an ADHDer? Safety not just looks like calm, it looks like comfort. I have a male friend of mine. He and I are not dating. We are friends. I have been asked why by certain people. I have been asked by certain people why we don't date. That's another conversation for another. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I have made peace with the fact that he is not in my life to be my lover. Could he be? Absolutely. He could be living his best life right now. But that's not right now, that's not his purpose, right? Maybe that may shift in the next 6, 7 months or in the next 6, 7 days. That might shift. Who knows? The universe operates very mysteriously oftentimes, right? But what I know is that the established friendship that he and I have developed has given me new identifiers on how to determine or how to decipher when someone is safe. I am a very goofy, quirky, geeky person, and I am comfortable being that way with him. So now I know that's one sign for me. Now I know that if a person is for me, that is the right person for me to pursue in a romantic way, that person, their energy allows me to let down a wall where I'm comfortable being my awkward, goofy, crazy self and know that I'm not going to get judged. That's one identifier. The second is that comfort. When I'm in their presence, I'm comfortable. I'm okay with, I might not have cleaned up my bathroom before they got there and they're here, but I can go real quick and clean up the bathroom and they're not going to judge me. I'm comfortable enough around them to allow them to exist in my space as they would exist in their space. So not just taking off your shoes. Like if you want to come here, change your clothes, if you need to take a shower, it's cool. I'll share my food with you. I'm not restricted. It's not, you can't touch this. Like, oh, if you want some, it's okay. Because I got money, I can go buy it. I've worked hard enough to get to where I need to be. I can go replace certain things, right? I'm no longer in a deficit in my life. I can go replace things. It's cool. You can have that. I want to do things for you. I don't feel obligated to do things for you. And I want to do them for you because I love you. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm in love with you because I believe those two things are different, right? Not necessarily mutually inclusive, but there's a different level of genuinely loving someone because you love them as a human being and then being in love with, like, you want this person to be, you want to build with this person, like the love for them. It's every ounce of their being you want to absorb, you want to be around. I could love somebody and I want to be around you, but I don't want to absorb you. I don't want to immerse myself in you. The person who I'm in love with, I want to merge with your fucking skin. I want to merge with your skin. I want you to hold. I want to be around you. I want to know everything about you. I want to support you. I want to be in your presence 24/7. Like, I don't want to be without you. The people I love, particularly my friends, I could miss y'all. So being in love for me and loving someone are different levels, right? So I love you and I want you to feel comfortable when you're in my space. So maybe I'll make you a plate. I might cook, or I'll order food, and I'll have food ordered and ready. Or if you're coming over, I'll do a quick grocery run. What type of snacks, what type of things you like to eat? I make sure I have that in the house. So when you come visit me, things that you like are in my space because you make me comfortable enough to do that. And I want to do those things for you because I know that when I do those things, you'll appreciate it because you've already given me signals about things that I have done, small things, small nuances that I have done as we are getting to know each other. You've already shown me that you appreciate me. So I reciprocate that by acts of service because that's one of my intimacy languages. So acts of service is one of my intimacy languages. And I respond in kind because you've shown me that you are grateful for me being in service to you as someone who I love. So that safety, I feel safe. I feel comfortable. If we're watching something and I cry or I have an emotional reaction, you're not gonna judge me. You might even pull me closer to you and cuddle me because you recognize that I'm an emotive person and everybody doesn't get to see that. And you're grateful that I feel comfortable enough to let you see those vulnerable sides of those transparent sides of me. You find that as sacred and you cherish that and you keep that safe. It doesn't become bragging rights for you. You may not tell your boys everything because it's not even up in business, but also because the time that we spend together is special. You make me feel special. You remind me that I am special. It's not lip service for you, right? The person that makes me safe, it's not lip service for them. They not just tell me that I'm special, they show me in action. Their actions and their words are congruent, right? That's how I know. Those are things, the wisdom that I have developed over time. Those are ways, particularly with the single male friend that I had, which is so weird because in my teenage years, all I had were guy friends. And when I say I don't have a lot of guy friends, I'm not talking about people who I associate with, right? There's a difference between, there's a lot of guys that I associate with, that I have conversation with. He is the closest male friend that I have in my life at this time. The closest. So like, so he has been my metric of when I start to date, is this experience similar to my closest male friend? If it's not similar, it doesn't have to be exact. I'm not looking for it to be exact. I don't need a replica of him. He's unique on his own. I don't need a replica of him. But the way he makes me feel safe, does this particular guy that now I am in association with, I'm in relationship with, does this particular guy make me feel safe? Is the safety meeting the bar that my closest male friend gives me, or does it even exceed that? Is he going above and beyond? Because now, if he's going above and beyond, now I have a new metric. So now new men that come into my life now have to measure to this. Like now I keep building the metric of what safety looks like for me. And maybe this person introduces something new that I didn't even know that I wanted. Like, be the apple in my life. Sell me on the why. Sell me on the motherfucking why. Demonstrate to me how this is what I should have been getting in the first place. Teach me that, right? Men always want to teach you shit. Teach me that this level of worth, air quotes, that I thought I was getting is subpar. Raise the bar. Raise the bar, right? So if a gentleman is not exhibiting those signs of safety for me and or raising the bar in that space, it's a no. And that's the other thing. I got comfortable saying no. And sometimes those of us with ADHD are not comfortable saying no because it is so hard for us to find someone who gets us. And when we find someone who gets us, we hold on to them very tight, often to our own detriment. And I have learned that it is okay to walk away. Some, I don't keep too many things that I've learned from the church because I have deconditioned my brain. But one of the things that was always said is that Jesus can't give you things if your hands are closed. You can alternate that with the universe. The universe doesn't give you things when your hands are closed, but the moment you let go of things, and it's not necessarily that they don't belong to you or they don't serve you, they're at a level that you're no longer in. And if you hold on as you're trying to raise yourself, right? My Angelou says you gotta let go of the things that are weighing you down. So if if you try to rise, you got to let go of the things that are weighing you down, right? So if you're holding on to things that are keeping you stagnant, the universe can't give you the level up because you're afraid to let go, believing that this is as good as it gets. And I had to learn that's the lie. It is not as good as it gets. The last guy that I was in an actual relationship with, that's the one that friends almost had to come beat his ass. I will never forget him sitting in my living room. Who knew this motherfucker? He could have been a homosexual. Like, who knew? Maybe he really did have a house. Who knew? I would never know. Never been there. Never been there. Always was in my place. Moved himself into my studio apartment, right? Moved himself into my motherfucking studio apartment. So who knows, right? He stood in my living room and said to me, "You know we getting old, so you might as well just stick with me because ain't nobody else gonna want you." Excuse me. I like that might have been the point where I was like, "Oh, this thing got to get out. Like I got to cut this off because who the fuck do you think I am? Have you not seen me? Like I know I don't think I'm the prettiest person in the world, but I'm not unattractive. I'm pretty. Like niggas just be like, "Oh, I'm her friend," and just want to stand next to me because I'm pretty. Like proximity is a thing that a lot of men do with me. They just want to be in close proximity to me because they're looking for a certain caliber of woman. And that certain caliber of woman is not going to approach them if they're not standing next to someone who looks like me. I know this for a fact. Men have just been in close proximity to me who have actually fake dated me or fake liked me just so that they can be in close proximity to me so that they can make other women jealous because they were looking for a specific type of woman. And in order to get that type of woman, they had to be around me to make them jealous. So I know I'm not an unattractive bitch. I don't be leaning into that baddie space the way I need to be, but I know I ain't unattractive, right? So for him to say that to me, to make me feel like I'm getting old, and I was in my late early 30s, mid 30s. I might have been in my mid 30s. I might have been like 36, 37. I was still young. I'm still young now, but I was young then. So for someone to say that we in our 30s, in our mid 30s, and for somebody to say that to make me feel like he was the bar. And that bar was low. That bar was damn near in Hades. That bar was motherfucking low. Like, low hanging fruit is B. He was on the ground. I know there's a old mythology tale where some pretty goddess was grabbed some fruit off the ground and ate it. I mean, is that Persephone? That might be Persephone. That might be Persephone's lore. Saw the fruit on the ground, ate it, and boom. Now she's queen of the dead, right? And she can only be above ground 6 months out of the you know what I'm saying? Like, he was on the ground. And I picked him up and was like, "Oh, I think I could do this. I can nurture this fruit. I think I can nurture the seeds in this fruit and it could grow." And I lied to myself. And that person who was the fruit on the ground tried to tell me that him being the fruit on the ground was the best that I could do. So we have to be careful with the butterflies because we'll go experience the butterflies and the butterflies might be cool. But then that moth, because butterflies are moths, baby. They drink the salt from your skin. Pretty, pretty. Them niggas is moths, okay? They land on you. The only time a butterfly lands on you is when they can sense the salt, the sweat of the salt, or the salt on your skin. That's when a butterfly lands. Let's clear the lore. They pretty, but butterflies only land on you when your skin is salty, when they can sense the salt from your skin. Bees land on you when they sense your sweetness. Let's clear the lore. I know a lot of people are allergic to bees. I get that. But if a bee is buzzing in your vicinity, that means they sense your sweetness. They think you're a fucking flower because bees only land on flowers. You have bumblebees that attack, right? But honeybees and the bees that be with the sunflowers, they only land on the fucking flowers because they're pollinating the fucking earth. We need bees. That's how we have flowers. It's the cycle of bees keep the cycle of life going, right? So bees are they're pollinating. They're making sure flowers are growing. There's new growth, new things that are happening, new things that are birthing. They're literally ensuring those things. So if a bee comes near you, it's recognizing your sweetness for its and or recognizing the life in you, right? So butterflies might feel great. They might be pretty. They might be this majestic looking thing, but they will suck the fucking salt. So be very mindful about what you are gravitating to, what you are connecting to, and assuming that is as good as it gets. Because that is the lie that we have been sold. That is the lie that people try to convince us to believe. That is the lie that keeps us from getting what we want. I know I talked for a long time. I didn't even anticipate me talking this. But I wanted to talk on love and romance for the ADHDer. And I'm pretty sure there'll probably be like a part 2 or an extension, or maybe this is a series. I'm pretty sure that this is going to continue. But it is very important for us, those of us who are, particularly us Black women, who are living with ADHD or who are ADHDers or even living with autism. It's very important that we recognize the signs of safety so that we can make the best decisions possible for the romantic experiences that we are trying to have. I'm going to pause here because I feel like I can go on forever. But I'm going to pause here, and I'll probably continue this in another episode. Maybe this is a series. I don't want to commit myself to that because I don't want y'all to expect a series and then you don't get it. I want to be very realistic about the capacity that I have with being consistent. But talking about relationships, love and romance as a person living with ADHD, that I can commit to. So if you stayed this long, thank you for rocking with me. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you all tapping into the Muse Lab. And until we meet again. Thank you for tapping into this week's adventure. As always, don't forget to share the wealth with your community. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. And to deep dive into the Muse Lab, join my Substack community at siobhanl.substack.com. For more information, hop into the show notes for references and ways to connect. Meet you on our next adventure.